Okay, so we got a little bit about how to go do the vibrato and how to do some bends. I was asked, what's the kind of technique I use when I do those, and I kind of have a little bit different technique than most, but I think once I explain it, it'll kind of make sense why I do it that way. So, first things first. How I do my first finger vibrato. I like to normally hold my hand in this type of position. And what I'm really doing is I've got this part of my hand pressed up against the bottom of the neck, so that when I do my vibrato, I kind of use it as a pivot. It's exactly the way Doug describes it, how to do it in the complete basic course, and that way it works really well. I like to keep my thumb on top, so you got a really nice secure grip on there. Just give it a shake. I normally have my finger, when I use my first finger, pretty perpendicular to the string, so I can really press down on it and get some grip on it. For my second finger, when I do vibrato with that, I like to place my first finger lightly across most of these other strings so that it mutes them. So I can just go. And only that one string will really sound. I can be as sloppy as I want, but it'll still sound, pretty decent. But obviously I just, try and target the one string only, not all of them, but, you get it. I like to do the same thing with my third finger too. Put my index finger back there and, just give it a little shake. I normally always have my thumb on top, somewhere on top of the neck when I do vibrato. It feels kind of weird for me to do it on the bottom, without have my thumb on the bottom, not being on top. I feel like you get so much more control, you have so much more room to pivot, just the motion, the way your hand works. I think it's a lot smoother when you got your thumb on top. I mean, I see some people, they bend like this or something, and I don't know, it just seems kind of weird to me. It's just kind of an odd thing to do, and from the way I think of things, just doesn't feel like you have as much control. Some people are really good at it that way, that's their own thing, but I think for the most part, like Michelangelo Badio says, these guys with all the great vibrato, they're blues guys, alright? And he said all of them, they always have their thumb right up on top, clamped right over it, and they always, they bend it up and give it a good shake. I don't think my vibrato is anywhere near as good as Michelangelo Badio's, but I like to take his word for things because he's pretty damn good. So I keep my thumb on top, when I do my vibrato. And I like to use my fourth finger a lot. Actually, I used to hate doing it, before I really knew how to do vibrato well at all. I had some weird kind of technique, I would something weird. It just wasn't very fluid, because I was kind of still starting out, not really knowing how things work. I didn't really start getting better at it until I saw how it was, explained, how it was done by Doug Marks. But yeah, I used to not really like using my fourth finger for vibrato or even really doing bends, but you know, that one little blues kind of lick thing Michelangelo Badio does really trained my fourth finger, and now I kind of like using it. You can get a really nice grip, you know, right into that string. You know, can really dig in and, you know, just bring it up and shake it. Get that bend in there and just shake it. Yeah, so I guess speaking of bending, I think I also got asked about how to do my, you know, what's my bending technique like. Well, I think my bends are okay. I use my ears a lot. Um, you know, initially when we're starting out, you know, our bends are kind of off pitch, you know. You know, maybe we got something like that in underbend, or we got an overbend or something, but you know, after a while just practicing, just pick a note, you know, just pick a note. You know, pretty close right there. Eventually your ears just tell you when it's right. It's kind of, it's muscle memory, but it's also, you know, your ears telling your hands like, okay, we've got it in the right spot. You know, just shake it right there. Keep the vibrato right there. Um, you know, and bending on different guitars is different. I got a Floyd Rose, you know, so I actually have to bend the string a little farther up, you know, to get to the right pitch. Maybe we're doing a whole step, you know, bend or whatever. I actually have to push the strings a little bit farther up as compared to a guitar with a hardtail, because when you do a bend with a Floyd Rose, the bridge pulls out just a little bit. So in order to make up for that extra slack and still get enough bend to bring it to the right pitch, you got to push a string up just a hair farther. So, you know, it's not always exactly muscle memory. It's more your ears, you know, tell your hands like, okay, we've got it in the right spot. So you got to use your ears. Okay? Your ears are going to know what's right and what's wrong, what sounds good, what doesn't. So it's a lot of your ears telling your hands what to do. So, you know, I like to, you know, when I do a bend with my first finger, I kind of use the same form as when I have my vibrato, but, you know, but I obviously just pull the string farther. Normally, if I'm bending with my first finger, which I don't do a whole lot, I like to try and use my other fingers because you have more control, I feel. But I really normally just always pull it down. Obviously, if I'm on the first or second string, you got to push up, because if you pull down, you're gonna, you know, pull the string off the fretboard, and that doesn't sound right. But if anything, if I'm gonna try and bend up, you know, with any finger, I'd rather not do it with my first finger. I'd rather do it with my, you know, second, third, or fourth, because you get that extra control, I feel. So when I do bend with my second finger, you know, I always kind of, when I bend or do vibrato, I've always got my thumb up here, and I've got my hand touching the bottom of the neck just like this, because, you know, that's like your pivot point, okay? You know, pretty much right on right there. You get a lot of control, but yeah, I guess the way I hold my hand when I do a bend is pretty much exactly the same as how I do vibrato. Vibrato is really just a series of really small bends. So when I do a bend, you know, same form, but I'm just pushing the string, you know, farther, obviously, to give it that whole step, half step, or even a step and a half, you know, whatever. So third finger, you know, same type of form. I don't really, you know, when I'm using my second or third finger, I don't really have my index finger blocking these strings like I do with my vibrato, because I don't feel that you can really, I mean, you can still bend up pretty good, but I just don't feel that it's as comfortable as having all my fingers being able to control the string, you know, and really dig into it and have a lot of control over it. Because, you know, the more fingers that you have on contact with the string, you know, the more grip you got on that string, the more, you know, if you're only using one, like if I'm just going to use my index finger, you know, that's all you've got is that one point of contact to hold the string. Or if I'm only going to use my pinky for some reason and bend up with only using my pinky but not these other fingers, it, you know, it's kind of weak that way. So I normally like to bend with my pinky a lot, you know, or my ring finger, because you have all those other fingers behind it giving you a good grip on the string. So, you know, when you go like this, you know, get that grip right in there with all those fingers and shake it. Now, if I'm going to do a bend on the lower string, you know, I try using your pinky's a little weirder, I think, on the lower strings. But if I'm going to do a bend on a lower string, normally use my third or second finger. You know, just dig in, give it a shake. You got that nice pivot action happening. Keep the thumb on top. So yeah, that's just how I like to go about, you know, bending and vibrato. And just kind of practice, you know, making your vibrato consistent, really. If you're sitting there like, you know, something weird, you know, just work on it, get it really nice. You know, just a little shake. Or if you want to do something really wacky, you can go up a lot and down a lot real far. You know, that's kind of odd, but it's still technically vibrato. But normally I just give it a little. You know, make it sound good. Your ears are the captain. Listen to the captain's orders. So yeah, that's about what I do for that. So hopefully that gives you some insight, makes you think about some things, you know, how you should go about your own technique. So hopefully it helped.